Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the Velyka and Novosilka direction where the Russians continue their offensive operation. As for the morning of the 19th of January, we have several changes on the ground which are very important. According to pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the northern part of the settlement of Velyka and Novosilka. The Russians, as you can see, according to map changes, managed to answer the northern farms and the eastern airfield. This is the changes on the ground. So once again, as a result of offensive operation during the previous day, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the northeastern part and in the northern part of the settlement. So these are about the changes that were confirmed at least by some mappers or different sources. Furthermore, we have another video that was published from the Velyka Novosilka cemetery. We will not watch this video till the end because in this video you might see lots of losses from the Russian side, and this video shows us that the Russians most likely managed to answer the territory of the cemetery, but we don't know for sure whether the Russians managed to dig in deeper or to advance further deep inside of the settlement itself. So that's why we decided to keep the territory of the cemetery as an area covered with the fog of war. Furthermore, according to different pro-Russian resources, and you know that pro-Russian sources reported completely different situation in comparison with the map you can see right now. So the Russians are saying that by the beginning of the 19th of January, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the western part and over the southern part of the settlement of Velyka and Novosilka. It's very difficult to trust or believe this information. I believe that maybe the Russians managed to reach this red line, and currently the edge Russian positions go exactly along this red line, but most likely there are lots of pockets of resistance in the southern part, and most likely during the next several days the Russians will try to clear these pockets, and then they will continue advancing further in the northern direction. Furthermore, the Russians reported that there were, during the previous 24-48 hours, there were lots of cases when Ukrainians tried to retreat and when Ukrainians tried to abandon their positions. But the Russians are saying that just from first sight, it seems that it's so easy to abandon the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, the territory of Velyka and Novosilka, but the Ukrainians believe that they can reach the river of Mokre Yale and to cross it. The Russians are saying that all these attempts to cross this river will bring significant losses from the Ukrainian side. As for now, it's just talks, rumors and the speculations. Of course, we are waiting for additional updates. The sources are saying that most likely the village of Velyka and Novosilka would be captured within the next several days. I believe that the settlement would be captured and announced by the Russians before Trump's inauguration. At least the Russians will publish several videos with lots of flags along the entire village also during the Trump's inauguration. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Kurakhove direction. According to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their positions along the river of Sumy Yar. I'll remind you that according to different sources and military experts, the Russians are trying to advance in the direction of the settlement of Velyka along the Ukrainian side of the river of Sumy Yar. So during the previous 24 hours they managed to improve their positions a little bit. There is still a lot of work to do, but we see that the Russians are moving. Now let's discuss the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 24 hours and 12 hours we received lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. First, let's begin with the settlement of Kotline. Today, both neutral mappers and pro-Ukrainian mappers and pro-Russian mappers reported that as a result of clashes, these facilities in the northeastern part of the settlement of Kotline were captured and secured by the Russians completely. This is very important positions. This is a small industrial zone that the Russians can use as a very powerful stronghold that will secure Russian eastern northeastern flank before advancing further in the western and the the northwestern directions. Furthermore, as soon as the Russians manage to secure the northeastern flank, we start receiving updates that the Russians continue attacking and improving their positions in the area of the settlement of Udachne. And the Ukrainian sources are in panic because the Ukrainians are saying that currently the distance between the edge positions of the armed force of Russian Federation in the settlement of Kotlina and the border with the region of Dnipro is already less than 6 kilometers. And the sources are saying that the Russians will try to take the village of Molodetsk in the very near future, and this is going to be a significant victory for the Russians. Anyway, we believe that before moving further in the direction of Molodetsk, the Russians first will try to secure the settlement of Udachne, and the most important, the Russians will try to take under control the mine of Pokrovsk. Very important mine that that Ukrainians used to use for their industry, and now the Russians are about to capture this strategical point. Now let's discuss the situation in the city of Pokrovsk, and today we got a lot of very interesting videos from the south. These videos don't tell us anything important just from the first sight, but when trying to analyze these videos in details, we can get a lot of very interesting information. In this video we can see how 2 Ukrainian soldiers were moving in the southern part, in the southern citadel of the city of Pokrovsk, so nothing special. But the next video was very interesting. In this video we can see the same Ukrainian soldiers that were moving along the building in the southern part of Pokrovsk, and in the final part of the video we can see how the Ukrainians crossed the street and how the Ukrainians established defense position. So once again, this is the last moment when the Ukrainians turned westward and let's say they raised their guns in the western direction with the purpose probably to repel upcoming Russian attacks. So this is the moment the Ukrainian soldier was watching in the western direction. So I'll remind you that just yesterday several sources, mainly pro-Ukrainian sources, reported that the Russians managed to answer the city of Pokrovsk itself. This information was provided us by Ukrainian deputy Mariana Bezugla. Later, this information we didn't receive any confirmation yesterday about this information, but today we got the video that show us that the Ukrainians were retreating maybe under Russian artillery fire or mortar fire, and when they established defense position, the Ukrainians were watching in the western direction. So let's return back to this area, and once again the Ukrainian soldiers were moving along this building. They were moving in the eastern direction. Somewhere in this point they crossed the street, and in this area they established defense position, and the Ukrainians were watching in the western direction, so as if they were expecting that the Russians will begin offensive operation or will enter their territory in the territory of this of the Pokrovsk citadel from this part of the city and from this part of agglomeration. As for now, we have adjusted the map in the micro district Zelenovka in let's say, and we covered this territory of the fog of war, because we expect that maybe within the next 24-48 hours we are going to receive more updates exactly from this territory that will confirm Russian control, or at least that will confirm the Russian presence in the territory of the Pokrovsk agglomeration. So very interesting updates, as you can see, are ahead of us. As for the city of Toretsk, during the previous 24 hours we haven't received anything special, just counter-artillery duels. The Russians are regrouping, preparing themselves before full-scale offensive operation in the direction of Konstantinovka. Just regular activities, and furthermore the Russians are waiting in the city of Toretsk when the Russians finished the battle in the city of Chasiv Yar. As for the city of Chasiv Yar, the Ukrainian sources published the video how they were bombing and attacking the industrial zone in the central part of the settlement. Based on this video, we're not adjusting anything. We are using this video just to confirm the edge Russian positions, and that indeed the Russians managed to take under complete control the industrial zone of the city of Chasiv Yar. And another video occurred on the along the Kovalevskovo street. The video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and this is another proof that tell us that the Russians indeed managed to break through the southern part of the city, of the central part of the city of Toretsk, and to take under control the most important positions in the southern part of the citadel. As for the Kupiansk direction, during the previous 24 hours, during the previous 12 hours, we continue receiving lots of updates on the Ukrainian side of the Ryrovo Zherebets. The Ukrainian sources published the video on how they were bombing and attacking the H positions of the Russian troopers in the vicinity of Ivanovka. Based on this video, we have adjusted the contested area in Russian favor. So this is the situation by the end of the 18th of January. This is the situation by the beginning of the 19th of January. As for different Russian sources, they reported that the Russians continue advancing in the northwestern direction from the settlement of Ivanovka. You know that since the beginning of January, we've received significant number of geolocations and icons exactly in this area, from this area. And this concentration of icons tell us just one thing: the Russians are in the offensive state, and the Russians are trying to break the Ukrainian defense belt in this direction to defeat the Ukrainians completely, and probably to begin offensive operation in the direction of two settlements, the settlement of Liman and the settlement of Izum. Now we're moving to the Sumy direction. From this area we also got lots of very interesting updates, and the most important updates are coming not from the Sumy direction itself, but from the area of the village of Tetkina. If you remember, just yesterday I pointed your attention that during the previous 24 hours we received a lot of geolocations exactly from this area, how the Russians were FPV droning the Ukrainian positions along the line of combat contact, along the border. And yesterday I suggested that most likely the Russians are planning to begin another offensive operation in this area with the purpose to enter the Sumy region and to cut the railways that go from the capital of Ukraine, from Kiev, in the direction of Sumy. That was my speculation and my suggestion. But today we got a very interesting article that was published by the pro-Russian sources, and the Russians are saying that the Ukrainians are regrouping right now. They've brought significant number of forces exactly in the area of the settlement of Tetkina. And the Ukrainians, according to pro-Russian sources, are planning to begin a full-scale offensive operation in this area. Once again, the first stage of this offensive is to take under control the settlement of Krasnooktyabrski, Volfina, and the settlement of Tetkina. If the Ukrainians are able to finish this mission, then they will introduce the forces of the 47th Mechanized Brigade, and they will continue advancing further in the northern direction. The Russians are saying that the Ukrainians are going to attack in this area because they need to stop and to ruin Russian plans of counter-offensive in the Sumy direction. So this is going to be like attack to force the Russians to redeploy additional forces from the Sumy direction in the direction of the settlement of Tetkina. Furthermore, right before I started making this morning update, we got reports from very reliable pro-Russian resources that indeed the Ukrainians began another offensive operation. The Ukrainians are using the significant number of soldiers, armored vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles, and artillery. From that article, it was very difficult to understand where exactly the Ukrainians began their offensive, but most likely today we're going to receive a lot of very interesting updates from this direction as well. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.